You know, we hear a lot about the phrase misinformation, disinformation, fact checkers. You almost always hear those words from governments or government-affiliated media. That's another way of saying we are the arbiters of what's right, you aren't. And if we have a difference of opinion, you're the one who's wrong. And it's science because we fact-check you. It's been such a revelation for those who didn't know, or a confirmation for those who did know, to watch the government-affiliated, government-bailed-out media commit the most disinformation about the war in the Middle East. For example, they refuse to say the word terrorist when describing the Hamas terrorist group. But it's not a matter of opinion. They do terrorist things. It is their modus operandi. But more to the point, they are legally designated a terrorist group on the official list published by the Government of Canada. That list is there for a reason, because if something is deemed a terrorist organization, the criminal code applies to certain support for it. If you fundraise, if you support in other ways, if you travel to help them, those are all crimes that only apply to registered, listed terrorist groups like Hamas. Isn't it funny then? And that's the one group they won't say it about. They also, and this is in a CBC memo instructing their reporters not to say terrorist, they won't say that Gaza, from where Hamas launches its attacks on Israel, Gaza was deoccupied by Israel in 2005. It's been almost 20 years since the last Israelis set foot there. Not only did they move all the Israeli citizens out, they literally dug up the graveyards to remove the remains of the Jews in the cemetery back to Israel because they knew Hamas would desecrate it. There is not a single Jew in Gaza. It's what Hitler would call Judenrein, Jew clean, Jew free. And yet, instead of turning it into their own Arabian version of, I don't know, Arabia's Dubai, and instead of a Dubai or a Singapore or a Hong Kong, I mean, think about it, a city of 2 million on the Mediterranean coast, near Israel, across the sea from Greece, Italy. Instead of turning that into an amazing place, they turned it into a terrorist base camp. But the CBC will not let reporters let you know that. I saw this incredible phrasing in a series of CBC headlines, tweets, and articles. They said that some people, quote, died in the conflict, as if they were just using that passive, anonymous voice. They later made a fake correction claiming the only reason they said that because all the facts were not out yet, but that's a lie. I saw yesterday Global News, British Columbia, said that today was Hamas's, quote, day of action. But Hamas never said that. I went back and I re-watched the announcement, translated from Arabic, that Hamas made. And today indeed was a day, depending on how you translate it, a day of rage or a day of jihad. But Global News changed that. It wasn't an accident. They literally changed it to day of action because it sounds less terroristy than what they actually said. I say again, these journalists who were the first to call you factually wrong, first to fact check you, to say you're a conspiracy theorist, that you're trading in misinformation, which is mistaken information, or disinformation, which is saying things incorrectly on purpose. They are the ones who did that. It is not an accident to change a translation. It's not an accident to order everyone in your company not to use the word terrorist. That is dictionary definition disinformation. Here's an interesting tweet I saw. The CBC does call some people terrorists. They love calling the Proud Boys terrorists. I don't think the Proud Boys have, I think they had one meeting in Canada. It's just a bunch of good boys who like drinking beer. They haven't engaged in terrorism. But the CBC will call them terrorists. They'll certainly call the January 6 meanderers terrorists, but not actual terrorists. Which brings me to a story I saw the other day in Blacklocks. You know what Blacklocks is. It's one of the few independent media companies left in this country. Like us, they don't take any money from Trudeau. Here's their headline, "Drop the labels," CBC told. Oh, told by whom? The CBC should rethink news coverage that disparages cabinet critics as extreme or disreputable, warns the network ombudsman. The advisory follows a 2021 attempt by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation to act as a political fact checker. I will take this opportunity to stress to programmers at CBC they assume a great responsibility when they choose to use terms such as misinformation and disinformation in their stories, wrote Ombudsman Jack Nagler. When they do so, they had better be right, because if it turns out down the road the information proved to be correct, they can do great damage to their reputation, unquote. Well, that's the thing. They don't care. They know that's their mission. They are on a mission for their paymaster, Justin Trudeau, and their own ideology. Damage to their reputation. What do they care? They get paid whether or not they have a reputation. They take $1.5 billion a year from our tax dollars. I'll keep going. CBC News should reconsider use of the term far right in stories, added Nagler. Simple presentation of facts is preferable, so, quote, readers can judge for themselves who is reasonable and who is extreme, rather than declaring it for them. Wouldn't that be something if the CBC let you make up your own mind? Labels should be employed with great caution, Nagler wrote in a notice, theory or conspiracy theory. Sometimes it would be safer to say there is no evidence for something rather than proclaiming it to be false. Yeah, I think that's right. The Ombudsman's comments followed complaints over an August 2022 story by CBC Montreal reporter Jonathan Monpetit. The online article was headlined, Canada's convoy movement waved the Dutch flag. Then conspiracy theories swirled about fertilizer and bugs. It purported to document, quote, deliberate attempts to sow confusion about government policies by far-right media and conservative politicians. I'll just read a little bit more. The article named Conservative MP Cheryl Gallant, Alberta Transport Minister Devin Dreeshen, the Toronto Sun, the Western Standard, Rebel News Network, Farmers Forum, and the website Countersignal. Look at this. None were asked for comment. Quote, didn't the CBC have an obligation to go interview people who support the convoy? Wrote Ombudsman Nagler. Oh my God, if he keeps talking like that, I think he's going to get fired. The notice on labels followed Facebook Canada's naming of CBC News as a fact checker during the 2021 election. The network's French language service, Radio Canada, was to comment on the integrity of other media's campaign coverage. Do you get that? So the CBC would decide whether or not a story would get promoted or hidden on Facebook. They got paid to do that. Quote, when a fact checker rates a piece of content as false, we significantly reduce its distribution so that fewer people can see it, Facebook wrote in its 2021 Canadian Election Integrity Initiative. We notify people who try to share the content or previously shared it that the information is false, and we apply a warning label that links to the fact checker's article disproving the claim, unquote. So the CBC can censor their competition. Translation. Trudeau's CBC, Trudeau's state broadcaster, can censor his critics. I'll read a little more. Catherine Tate, CEO of the CBC, in 2019 testimony at the Commons Heritage Committee, described the Crown broadcaster as a beacon for truth in a stormy sea of disinformation. Quote, how do we protect and defend our citizenry from this unbelievable tsunami of disinformation? In a sense, we become a beacon for truth, said Tate. We need the public to feel safe that we are a beacon for that truth. You know, every once in a while, I don't get it a lot now, but sometimes people say, Ezra, you should change the name of Rebel News. I don't like Rebel. Sounds wrong. You should go for Truth News. You know, I appreciate people are trying to help us out. We're not changing our name. I'll just give you the short answer there. But the longer answer is, look, if you got to say you're the Truth News, that suggests that you aren't. It's like Justin Trudeau professing he's such a feminist. Yeah, most people who respect women don't go around telling everybody how much they respect women. It's probably him just getting out in front of his disrespect for them. But more to the point, I don't believe that we have a monopoly on truth. We like to tell the other side of the story, and we have a motto, follow the facts wherever they lead. But I'm not saying that every single thing we say is correct. We make corrections from time to time, and a lot of the things we say are a point of view that we think is reasonable, but other people can hold an other reasonable or even an unreasonable point of view. I would never call our company Truth News because I don't think I'm audacious enough to think that we are the only ones with the truth. But that is what the CBC just said. The CEO said, we are a beacon of truth. That beacon of truth that's been lying to you for the past week, refuses to call Hamas terrorists, and covers up, disinformation-wise, the truth of how Canadian murder victims of the terrorist group were killed.